3.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard. Welcome to another edition of the Pan-African Pyramid Show. We sit here at Fairway Hotel in Kampala, Uganda from 8 p.m. and a recorded version of the same runs on NBS television on Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. My name is Andrew Kashaya, speaker, and this evening we're discussing the implication of the ICC indictment against Putin, the Russian president, and how that will impact on the African geopolitics. We all know that today the most fiscal man in the world is Putin. According to ICC, they are looking for him. And they have said, wherever you find him, please arrest him and hand him over to us here. That's what they're saying. However, as they are saying that, the Chinese president is visiting Putin, and actually Putin has even invited the African presidents in July. He's going to host all the African leaders in his country in July. So, I don't know whether most of them will go with some, what do they call them, Chinese, to arrest Putin. But meanwhile, we want to discuss how that actually plays in our African politics, the geopolitics of Africa. What are the implications? Can ICC actually invade, arrest Putin? There are some other countries that actually are saying America should also think about letting George Bush, because they actually invaded a country and killed its leader. And this man is still there, kicking and very alive. So they're saying it's about human rights. What about those ones? A country is invaded, a leader is killed. But also, what about Cuba? Cuba is not a territory of America, but America holds actually a very big part of Cuba as its detention center. America, up to now. So if it's about respecting the sovereignty of the country, if you want Russia to respect the territorial sovereignty of Ukraine, what about you, America? Are you respecting the sovereignty of Cuba? And what about other atrocities that your own previous leaders have actually committed and you've not been able to elect them? I don't want to be a debater tonight, I'm simply a moderator. But one of the most outspoken panelists on the Pan-African Pyramid is Professor George William, who is an international civil rights lawyer. Professor, I know you don't like Putin, but do you think they have the capacity to arrest Putin? Detain him where?
Right Honorable Speaker, this world has got laws. Like any society,
Yes,
the international community has got laws that govern them.
that's true.
This world has been through so many wars. The First World War was fought. Millions of people died. Then, the Second World War was also fought. And then the world met in Philadelphia, in the USA, and said, no more lawless wars in the world. An organization was set up called the United Nations. It has a UN charter. The United Nations Charter exists to control the behavior of countries. Article 2 of the United Nations Charter,
Of the UN Charter.
yes, says it is forbidden and refrains the use of force by any country against the territorial integrity or political independence
Of another
state. Putin violated the territorial and political integrity
of another state.
of another state, that state being Ukraine. Putin recognized part of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent states just because Russian language and culture. Language is spoken there and culture followed, Russian language. That should not be reason for a country to interfere with the integrity of another country. Otherwise, Rwanda would be justified in annexing Kivu and making it a state,
part of Burundi.
Even recognizing it as an independent state. Rwanda would be justified to annex Kivu and recognize it as an independent republic, or even annex it to Little Rwanda. And that is not the way the world would go.
My point is this: Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
America has occupied part of Cuba since 1902.
Yes.
1902. Does the UN Charter also affect America? Since 1902, America occupies part of Cuban territory. They are accusing Russia of invading Ukraine in 2022 and 2014. When does the UN Charter work?
But there is an agreement between Cuba and the USA government. There is an agreement on how and why they will occupy that. At the formation of the UN, there was what we called USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And it is that one that signed the UN Charter. Actually, it was a mistake, and it is even a mistake now to recognize Russia as a member of the 5 veto powers. Why? Because when the USSR collapsed, there were many states. Instead of the UN saying the membership should rotate among the former members, like Georgia, like Ukraine, the membership was denied to rotate. Instead, the UN made a special secret deal with Russia, one of the states. And today, Russia sits as an illegitimate member of the UN Security Council. It's very illegitimate. It's never signed because it was not there. Now, in 1991, that the UN just donated the seat to Russia. And that's part of the problem. Because Russia has been a rogue state since that time. It's like China. You know that China became a member of the UN in 1975. All along, they were not recognized as members of the UN because the Republic of China that existed before the revolution, the leaders fled to Taiwan. And so up to today, Taiwan is officially the Republic of China. The leaders who ran away from the mainland China, they ran to Taiwan. So, would we say the real official member state of the UN from China would be Taiwan, not the current China? But that said, the UN Charter is very clear. Whether you signed or not, but Russia is a member of UN. I would rather address you on the matter of the ICC. The ICC is a very complicated court. I was in the Ministry of Justice when the ICC was formed in 1998. I was the Directorate of Legal Advisory Services. And the question was asked. It came to my desk. Should Uganda join the ICC? And I made a news minute and I said Uganda should not join the ICC. And my director was Lucien Tibadoga, called me. He said, why have you said Uganda should not join? I said, first of all, America has refused to join ICC because it takes away sovereignty. All these big powers are not in that thing. Israel is not, USA is not, and Russia is not. But my director overruled me. He said, you know, I've spoken to the big people. You change your opinion and let it be. But I can assure you, the ICC, whether you are in it or not, it is the International Criminal Court. that summons any errant country. What are the crimes for which the ICC will indict the person? 1, killing of civilians, destruction of property. And we saw how Putin has been destroying civilian accommodation. Putin has been targeting electricity installations. Putin has been targeting churches. These are crimes. He must answer. Notwithstanding the fact that other people have also committed rights. 2 wrongs do not make 1 right. And Putin should have known that when you order troops into a nation, you're going to kill people. You're going to kill civilians. There is no way you can conduct by invading another country and civilians don't die. Now, the question is, how does it affect the geopolitics of Uganda? 1, it points to correction of lawlessness. In Africa here, we have states that are not respecting the territorial integrity of other states. Uganda, one of them, entering Eastern DRC the way they want, all the time, under excuses of fighting rebels in Eastern Congo. That's not your business. That country has got an army. However weak the army is, let that weak army fight its own rebels. One day, and the Mr. Speaker said, this is the behavior of the Western world. They allow you to invade a neighboring country. They pretend they are not seeing. They encourage you. Then they turn around. Examples. When Iraq attacked Kuwait, Saddam Hussein was the best friend of America. They told him, you can attack Kuwait, we shall do nothing. He attacked Kuwait. They turned around him. When Putin annexed Crimea, 2014, they told him, we shall do nothing. They did nothing. But now when he attacked Ukraine, they are supplying weapons to attack him. What are the implications for Uganda? They are allowing Museveni enter Congo and Kagame enter Congo with M23. They withdraw, they negotiate, they take out the M23 peacefully until one day they will turn against Kagame and Museveni. That is when they will issue an arrest warrant under ICC.
That is true.
Kagame and Museveni. Watch space. That's how they behave. If Ndinawe was here, if Professor Ndinawe was here, he would have told you that is the behavior of barbarism. So what are the lessons for Africa? Don't trust the West. They will entice you to attack a neighboring country, but the law will catch up with you. Don't invade another country.
So now if you're saying that whether you are a signatory or not to the UN Charter, it affects you, then why do people sign? Why do governments sign?
There are advantages for signing. For example, if you now have a situation in your country and you have signed up as a member, the ICC will help you to persecute that person.
Like they did to Uganda.
For example, yes.
Uganda.
Yes. For example, in June 2002, Uganda signed and became a member of the ICC. Immediately in July 2002,
they dated Kony.
Uganda forwarded the case of Joseph Kony to the ICC.
And they started their war.
Have they got him? They have prosecuted all his commanders except him. They have prosecuted all his commanders except him. And that has brought relative peace in our country, I think. So the ICC works.
So Professor Kony is so sophisticated to be arrested by America than Gaddafi.
On the matters of arrest, the international laws, all international laws, the arrest is not done by the UN because the United Nations does not have a force or a police force that can effect its rulings. Once somebody has been indicted, they can only ask another country where the person is landing to arrest him using the soldiers and police of that nation. And that is why when Uganda chooses not to arrest, nothing will be done. Because the same UN Charter allows a country to exercise its rights of self-determination. So if a country says, like South Africa now has said, for us, we are not going to arrest, they will not arrest, and nothing will be done to them. Two, most of these countries that are declining to arrest are also members of the non-aligned movement. And they can say, on our principles of non-aligned movement, we are not going to arrest. I have heard the sentiments, Right Honorable Speaker, about the Tony players and all the evil that the American state has done. But I want you to check all those situations. America is a very careful player. It has never invaded any country.
Oh, really?
Without the endorsement. It has never invaded any country without the endorsement of the Security Council. I tell you. Even before
Kashaya is a president.
Yes, you told me research. For example, you see, before they issued this warrant against Putin, do you know what they did?
You raised a point of view.
Yes.
First of all, the way how United Nations Security Council, how it works. For instance, in April 2003, before United States of America invaded Iraq, the United Nations tasked experts to go to Iraq to verify what they call weapons of mass destruction. And the United Nations Security Council wanted to base on the report from those experts to allow the coalition led by United States to invade Iraq. Can you agree with me that after the report published publicly, that in Iraq there was no weapons of mass destruction, United States violated the mandate of United Nations and invaded Iraq? Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, that the current speaker does not actually recite and record, or if he is doing it deliberately, is he on the payroll of United States government?
Yes, there are certain sites which Iraq did not open.
So that's why that's why they could have been hidden.
Exactly. So that,
why did they open them?
So that is the excuse that the Americans used to invade the country. That is why it is after the invasion that both Bush and Tony Blair apologized and said, we went there, we actually found nothing. So, Right Honorable Speaker, the crimes that Putin committed were verified already by investigators. And so, he is not going to be exonerated just because America has ever done the same thing. He is going to be charged, found guilty, and killed, or sent to prison. Because he has been committing these crimes openly. Actually, going back to the American system, I tell you, America is always very clever. Even now, Mr. Kashaya, listen to this. You see that even now, America is not fighting a war with Russia. They have given it to NATO. And NATO is making an alliance. They are supplying weapons in support. even in attacking Libya.
Information.
Yes, they attacked. In fact, the planes, I'm surprised that Molema was saying that the planes which I'm going to finish this presentation. Yeah, the planes which bombed Gaddafi, put it today. The planes the planes which bombed Gaddafi today, they were NATO planes. Led by America, but they are NATO planes. They put a no-fly zone. And for me, I can detect that now a no-fly zone is very imminent anytime by NATO in Russia, over Russia and the capture of Putin.
When you're talking about arresting Putin, under which law?
UN Charter.
Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want now to expose United States, how it works, how it will affect us.
Go ahead.
United States of America
Go ahead.
has 1 million troops, 1 million troops all over the world. In Africa, they have 475 troops near Ethiopia, Djibouti. Yes. In Asia, they have 673 troops in Tokyo, near Tokyo, in Japan. Now, what you don't know, that the United States of America, as it is called in itself, is creating an independent institution to sterilize the world. For information, for all the operations, the overseas operations, United States, they are not approved by the Senate. All the money that is spent in overseas operations comes from National Reserve Bank. In other words, no politician in the United States knows how much United States is spending in security operations globally. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the former speaker was talking about the Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. This prison came as a result of 9/11 attack in 2001, when there was a serious attack in the United States. And that was an idea now by George Bush to start now looking for possible countries where these terrorists were. And I want to assure you that the United States of America is illegally occupying Cuba. Because in 1912 up to 1917, because there were several attacks in Cuba, up to 1918, up to recent 2001. Some of these treaties they signed with Cuba were violated. Because after that war, there were an MOU between Cuba and the United States to allow some citizens who were Americans to be going to Cuba and visit their families, vice versa. So they allowed some of them to occupy that place and release some of the prisoners of war based on that MOU. But later on it was violated and forcefully invaded that area. Actually, if you ask the Cuban government, they will tell you that the United States is illegally occupying that area, even with that prison. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, in May 1st, 2003, United States led the coalition of so many European allies to invade Iraq. This this prolonged conversation about the Iraq invasion before America invaded Iraq continued and made headlines all over the world. Whether it was right for America to invade Iraq or not. It was discussed in the United Nations Security Council. It was discussed in the United Nations Assembly, and they made recommendations. And these are the recommendations. They say, before invading Iraq, a team of experts, which comprises some experts from International Atomic Energy, based in Belgium, in Belgium, to assess, because these are experts, to assess whether and find out whether the weapons of mass destruction were available in Iraq. 3 independent reports were released, and all of them, they found out there was no weapons of such nature. But Mr. Speaker, to my surprise, with all the discussions, by then, I remember by then the United Nations Security General Secretary even issued a statement when they had in New York a special assembly. And he said, the experts have found out there are no weapons of mass destruction. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is terrible to see in this 21st century the war criminals, including George Bush, Blair, and his allies, are not touched. And yet, right now, they are talking about arresting Putin, of which they cannot afford. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, Putin has got a very strong ally in Africa and in Asia. The moment United States and its allies attempt to arrest Putin, they likely to be another world war. I'm telling you this because as we speak right now, South Africa has allowed him to go to South Africa. I think there is a summit there. Now, I think this was in 2009. The ICC 2009-2010. The ICC issued the same international warrant to arrest the sitting president in Africa here, the former president of Sudan, Bashir. Bashir came here. I want to thank President Museveni for not arresting him. Because this was Kajogo. This is an international, and this is absolutely a double standard. The war criminals who are known to be Americans, they are the ones now calling themselves Democrats. This is a big shame. This is a big shame. We are saying, before you talk about me, about my eye, look at yours, how it is seeing other things. This is dangerous. Mr. Speaker, sir, arresting Putin is like a comedy. This is a serious comedy. And
ICC is a very serious institution.
How?
I mean, you've been seeing they've been handing down coin here.
This is a world-class leader.
Yes.
Who is supported by the way, let me tell you, Putin has more allies than America.
Yes.
Can I tell you how many countries are supporting him?
But you can't say it's a comedy.
167 countries are behind Putin. Top. 167 countries are behind Putin.
Be part of people's Pan-African Parliament.
This is not a
Free
small
your mind
mistake.
now.
This is not just a small step that you will just come and step on. No, Putin is a world-class leader. Many of us are in support of him.
That is agreed, but should you use your world-class leadership to attack other sovereign countries?
But it is the same thing happening to America. America is, by the way, leave alone attacking and invading other countries. America is not not only attacking other countries, but occupying. After the invasion of Iraq, America stayed in Iraq for how long? America has destroyed nations. Look at Somalia. They are the ones who created the problem in Somalia. Look at Afghanistan.
Libya.
You can call them, whenever United States goes, a country becomes a stateless country.
Libya.
Yes, go look at Libya. By the way, during Gaddafi's time, I visited Libya with the Honorable Basari and other colleagues, the Pan-African movement. Let me give you information. By that time, Libya was better than Spain in terms of GDP.
That's correct.
Yes, by then. And they had the best medical infrastructure in the world. They had the best insurance schemes in the world. They had free education. They had what are you talking about? This is the time to isolate America and create more allies in some other European countries and isolate America.
You want to isolate America, not Iraq.
Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, even at my age, I'm ready to wage a war against America. Yes, because we are tired of people suffering.
America is helping the world to punish Putin. Support Putin.
You see, Mr. Speaker, it's like now a criminal, a guy, come and say he wants to be your husband. When you're a woman, and you know this man is a serial gang, and he's going to your parent to introduce him, how do you feel? Because these are international war criminals. These are terrorists. Yes, America is a terrorist country. You don't know? United States of America is a criminal country and a terrorist country.
Free your mind now.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me also say this in my conclusion. Do you know that some of you, the grants America is giving you, is coming from the visa application you give on daily basis? Are you aware of that? $100 you give every day for applying. Do you know how much they collected there? They use the same amount and they come back and give it to you as a grant. Good, it is your money. Why are you fighting to go to America? To do what? To do what? We have many allies in the whole world. To hell with America. America, please, we are tired of you. We know you. I know there are some good Americans in America who want to associate with us. And this is the time Pan-African pyramid to identify good citizens from America, good Americans,
good Canada,
and good Europeans whom we can work with, so that we identify these international war criminals and terrorists in America, and we isolate them, and we work with other people, and we
free your mind now.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and the previous speakers who were on the podium. So, if you talk about the arrest warrant that was issued to President Putin, first ask yourself, why did it happen? And before it happened, why did Putin go to Ukraine? If you're a man and you see a snake entering your house on the veranda or near the neighbor's house, do you wait for it to enter your house, or you hit the head before it enters your house?
So that is the argument.
The reason why I gave this,
that is the argument you sold it.
The reason why I said this, it was Russia by then, under the USSR, as he said, that allowed, after the referendum, that allowed Ukraine to become a sovereign state, the kind of Belarus and other countries. So if Russia didn't want Ukraine to be independent, it wouldn't have allowed this referendum to pass, because it was the Russian government that was in charge of this referendum vote. So this clears the path to show you that Russia doesn't have interest to annex Ukraine. So the issue in this is the US and the NATO allies were sweet-talking Ukraine so that they can bring their bases near to Russia. And these people were at the loggerhead and start serving them ice cream. And when US bring these bases near you know what happens after. So you can't allow your enemy to come to your doorsteps. So when Ukraine used force, remember they had signed an agreement which the professor didn't speak about. In this agreement of the referendum, US and the Ukraine was not allowed to go in alliance within the NATO and any enemy of Russia to bring its army bases near Russia. But Ukraine was at the verge of accepting this. And by this happening, this means that the people of Russia were going to face problems. Wars were going to happen. So he acted on prevention is better than cure. I can put that like that. I'm not justifying the crimes because once a person dies, this is a bad thing. But what are the circumstances that are leading to this death? There are some things that are inevitable in some situations. We talked about the Tony Blair. The speaker didn't tell you why the arrest warrant was put into place. But the real reason, when I was reading to the United States Institute of Peace, the International Criminal Court ICC announced last Friday that it had issued arrest warrant to Russian president, and the Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Berova, according to a statement issued by ICC, Putin and Berova are alleged to have committed the war crimes of unlawful deportation of population, children, and that of unlawful transfer of population, children, from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. That is the reason why they issued the warrant. Talk about the war. Their issue, the cover-up, was the deportation. Now, if you speak about the deportation of people from Ukraine to another state, why don't you also issue an ICC warrant to other states that allowed the Ukrainian people to flee to their countries? Have you interviewed the people who went to Russia and they told you that they forced us into Russia? No, you haven't interviewed them. They are just thinking about setting up an ICC, field office into Ukraine. So how can you prosecute a person before even putting an office into that occupied place so that you can prosecute something that you understand? So that's one of the hypocrisy that you can speak about. When I go to the topic, how is it going to affect Africa? As I wind up. I was just giving you an insight. But how is it going to affect Africa? It is not going to affect Africa if African presidents and leaders are wise enough not to fall victims of the hula balloon games playing here and there, cakes and cokes with the Western world. If they stand firm and they say we are sovereign state, if you want to arrest Putin, wait for him when he's in US. When he's in US, you can arrest. But when he's in Africa, Africa has its interests. And if the African interests are going to be achieved by the pact of Russia or China, why do we have to sell out our benefits on top of the Western world ideology? For example, when I was reading some newspaper, I saw that China sent in drones to DRC to help them in security reasons. And this happened after China visiting Putin. You're seeing Putin calling the African leaders on table. This means that Africa is, nowadays they see it as a potential partner to their growth. So it is the African leaders to think well how to act. And if they act well by not aligning by their long-term allies, the Western, who have not delivered anything but mayhem, you never know, we may get nothing. Because we have never seen Russia colonizing any African state. I've never seen China colonizing any African state, but I've seen the Western world colonizing the Western state and dictating to us how to live, how to eat, how to walk, how to read, how to do everything. But I've never seen a Chinese or a Russian person telling us how to eat, how to walk, how to do everything, and talking wrong statement about our presidents and our governments.
Thank you so much.
So I beg the African leaders to act by their mindset and think what will help the people of Africa. We saw as I wind up, we saw the Western world not allowing the oil pipeline to pass through, but who came to our rescue? So let's look for where we shall be rescued, but not rather what we shall put in our pockets. I beg to submit and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Adune Timothy from Jacobo University, Bachelor of Arts in Education. Today's debate or today's motion, implications of ICC indictment against Putin and how it impacts on African geopolitics. I'll begin with this statement. First of all, it's easy but wrong to be cynical about Putin's indictment. As Pan-Africanists, I would like to inform you and inform African presidents that this is just a trick by the Americans, by USA, to bring about disunity among the African leaders. That's my point. This is the trick used by USA to bring about disunity among the African countries. What will come next after the disunity? We saw what happened in World War I and World War II. You get the point? World War I and World War II. These were the same cases. Without fear or favor, I will tell you that, as Mr. James has said, these guys are just testing the patience of Africans, and they are testing the patience of other European countries. I would like to inform you people that there are very many countries in this world that should be in the place where the USA is seated. As he said, Russia has the capacity to be the current superpower country. It was through the arms race that caused the World War II. If they can budget in the budget of America, if they can budget for the arms to go support Ukraine to fight against Russia, isn't that arms race?
I think so.
It is arms race, because through that you may think that they are just supporting Ukraine to fight against the Russians, but these people in so doing, they are just trying to test their arms, to see how strong their arms are. That's what they are trying to do. The alliance system.
So they are using Ukraine as a testing ground.
Of course. That's what they are trying to do. And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, 1 minute, as I conclude, the alliance system is just coming back. I'm alerting African presidents, African leaders, if they make a mistake and they join USA to indict Mr. Putin, it will be the beginning of World War III in this world. Reason being, African leaders who will support USA, as he said, Russia also has an alliance. There are these alliances that will bring about the World War III.
Russia, China,
Ukraine, perhaps Uganda will join any of the two, because our president has not shown sign. So I'm just alerting African presidents to be ready.
My name is Kashaya. But I'll try to inform people the genesis of this war, because most people don't know about how this war is being fought or why the war is being fought in Ukraine. First of all, when Russia was being separated from Soviet Union to be Russia of Ireland, we saw George Bush of America and Secretary of State by then was called Jimmy Baker, if I'm not mistaken. They made an agreement with Gorbachev, the former president, Secretary of Soviet Union, that NATO should not extend any inch eastwards after the fall of Berlin, 1989. That was Berlin Wall. Eastern Germany was still controlled by Russia because Russian army occupied that place. So after the fall,
don't extend, is it eastwards?
Eastwards. To the Balkans, Balkan states.
Yes.
So America extended NATO 2 rounds. When Putin came into power to 1999, even he made a speech in 2008 in Munich. There was a Munich security. He said, what you're saying, what that is doing, extending eastwards, because they will. I never respected him. He started even in 2012, I think, there was a country called this small country, Lithuania. It was put into NATO with some other small country. I think it's Estonia.
Estonia,
yes, Estonia. So we saw in 2014 a legitimate government that was pro-Russia, led by Poroshenko in Ukraine, was hosted by America through CIA, led by Victoria Nuland. If you know that, Victoria Nuland led a military, it was a coup in Ukraine in 2014. So when that coup happened, Russia warned, you've hosted our pro-Russian leader. They installed some other, I don't know, I've just forgotten the name, so when he was installed, they started killing people in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, called Donbass, Luhansk region, it's called Donbass region, Luhansk and Lugansk regions. Russian speaking population was sterilized, because they were banned, they were killed. They said that Russian language was going to be made the second language in those places, in those states. It wasn't speak. So after people were being killed, pro-Russian people were speaking Russian language were killed, Putin said he intervened. That's when he went into Ukraine and annexed Crimea. When annexed Crimea, they had an agreement called Minsk I, Minsk II agreement in Belarus, the capital of Belarus, Minsk. There was Francis Hollande of Germany, of France president, and Angela Merkel, the chancellor of Germany. They acted as guarantors. So for that, Ukraine can make sure that those things were discussed in the Minsk II agreement were going to be implemented, but they have never implemented. The killing of Russian population continued. We saw people were put in a very big building in Odessa. They were burned to death. So Putin, in fact, Putin brought the Americans to Zulu. It was 2021. He met Biden in Switzerland. They talked about this, said, if you let these people continue killing our Russian people in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, we shall intervene. Biden said, we shall talk about it. They even held 2 meetings online, if you are keen about that. After Russia started massing soldiers around Ukraine border, Russian-Ukraine border, Eastern Ukraine, Americans started saying, Russia don't attack, Russia don't attack, Russia don't attack. They said, if you cannot put what we discussed in this 2 agreement and implement it, we shall attack. That's when Russia went into Ukraine. They say that they called them countries, Lugansk and Lugansk regions were declared independent. So, but Russia entered. Putin wanted someone to negotiate with on a table, but Americans never wanted negotiation. So Russia entered with a very few soldiers, by the 100,000 soldiers into Ukraine. So, but they use their media. They have CNN, they have Fox News, they have BBC. Propaganda. They just not there to just promote propaganda.
Sky News.
Of course, Sky News. You see, Putin will take care of Ukraine in 2 days. They failed to take the whole of a small country like Afghanistan or Iraq in 2 days. Ukraine is, I think, 1.5 times bigger than Kenya. It's a very big country. You cannot take it in 2 days. And with the small, you put yourself there. You failed to get a negotiation pattern or table. After failing, they went back and reorganized. So by the way, they are going to do a very, very, very big offensive. It's coming. America, because of its hegemony, exporting wars, saying that it's supporting democracy.
Is America exporting wars?
Yes, in the pretext of democracy. We saw what they did in 1962, I think it was Vietnam. We see the Korean War. We see what they're doing to Cuba. Embargo has been there for 60 years. We see in Libya, we see in Iraq, we see in Afghanistan, we see in Somalia. Even here you go,
they have been exporting
wars is in the pretext of democracy.
peace.
Yes.
Actually, they have a contingent called peacekeepers.
Of course.
They're in Congo.
I mean, America has 800 military bases all over the world. Mr. Kashaya was talking about
peace.
Not keep peace. They realized in those countries.
And they're called peacekeepers.
No.
And they want to
in the pretext of democracy. And they, by the way, because of their media, They have a strong media and they are propaganda. Those media TVs of theirs, they will make sure that they export propaganda to the whole world. But let me tell you one thing, Russia is the biggest country in the whole world, you know that?
Yes, the largest.
Yes, the biggest country in the whole world.
Yes.
Russia, even for distribution, was the second superpower. Even now it's the second, it's the superpower. Russia cannot allow to be bullied by America. I thank Putin for what he did. And this one will change this global hegemony of America and it will change the world order. And African countries, by the way, this is our only chance and our only time to align with Russia and China and with the global hubs to make sure that we take the status quo. They keep saying that the international community has communicated, the international community is condemning. It's only Western countries, Western Europe and North America. Or if you add the whole population of Western Europe and America, the Western world, it even can't equal the population of China, 1.4 billion. They're almost 1.1 billion. So they want to, these globalists, Victoria Newland, they have this, the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. They make sure that they want to maintain this global hegemony. America wants to be all over the place, doing the policeman of the world. They don't want other countries to have a state. We are independent countries. Russia cannot allow that, and China.
So, Mr. Sal,
Yes.
how is this going to affect African geopolitics?
The geopolitics is shifting from west to east, from global north to global south. Because China, we are seeing China now.
And is that good for Africa?
It's good for Africa and developing countries, the whole of the world, because it will change the status quo and the global hegemony of America will be changed and to put stop. And America will, if it continues to create a third world, that one is imminent. If it continues pumping weapons to Ukraine, fighting the proxy with NATO, these countries, it will create a third world. Because you see, they first did what we call economic terrorism. They sanctioned Russia. It's 14,000 sanctions have been put on Russia. 14,000 sanctions
on Russia.
On Russia.
To destroy its
Of course, but Russia prepared this in advance because this SWIFT paying system, Russia created its own. So by the way, it's creating the cards which will replace these Visa cards, MasterCard with China. They're doing it. So they thought Russia would block it and Russia would collapse because they don't want any other country to come up and to be a superpower
than America.
But now it's happening. Russia never collapsed because of economic sanctions. And even now they are pumping a lot of weapons. Even I saw Slovakia today and Poland are sending fighter jets into Ukraine. And I saw UK is sending these tanks to contain uranium something which will cause something of weapon mass destruction. It has atomic something. And people will be affected. People give birth to defective children. And Russia has won. If UK does that, then retaliation, it will retaliate. And it will be enormous. So what we can see now, the world is changing. We are seeing the global power, if I may call it, is changing. We are seeing other countries emerging, and global balance of power is being created. This is good for Africa. This is good for the developing world because we've suffered so long. We can now come up and speak. And this international people of God, if I can, let me just defer it.
Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm Chongebe Selevan, a student at Makerere University. Mr. Speaker, the ICC is not a real threat. It is just an imaginary threat. The ICC lacks the implementation or the enforcement strategy. Maybe we can say that UN, at least the UN Security Council has tried to enforce some of its, it has tried in terms of enforcement, but the ICC has just been an imaginary threat to the leaders of the country. Mr. Speaker, Russia has world-class security. Therefore, any attempt to attack Russia or any attack on Russia would result into a heavy response. That's why I agree with my colleagues who say that this may result into a third world war. Of course, we see that Putin will be in South Africa just within a few days from now. Do you expect South Africa to arrest Putin? No, it won't. Actually, there is no African country which has the potential to arrest Putin. There is no any single African country. But even if they have the potential, they arrest Putin. We have seen that most African countries are pro-Russia. Others have come out openly to support Russia, and others have always abstained on topics such as the Russia-Ukraine war, but their silence has always communicated that they are pro-Russia. Yeah, that means the highest percentage of African countries have always been in support of Russia. Therefore, Putin, actually, Africa can't be against Russia. It can't happen because we know our enemy has always been the imperialist West. Mr. Speaker, Russia also has strategic allies. Let's talk of China, North Korea, and other big world powers. That means Russia has the capacity to counter or to neutralize the West. Therefore, the arrest warrant does not threaten Putin in any way.
I thank you so much, the speakers of today. I am really very glad, and every time I sit in a panel where young people sit and with the guides of other people, I feel the future is still very bright for us, the African children. Across this Russian crisis and Russian-Ukraine issues, the Western media actually, our media have made sure that for us who get internet from there, first of all, the main reason why Russia invaded Ukraine is not displayed on the media or wherever you search on YouTube, whatever. They will only explain to you how bad Russians are in invading the Ukraine side. They forget that there was actually, before this thing started, you remember the annexation of Crimea? There was an agreement, right? That Russia actually paid $11 billion to the country. And now Ukraine came and said, you know what, because the Western world needs gas at a more cheaper price from Russia. And so part of the annexation actually extended the productions by the Russians, and they increased the price. So they had to come back and convince Ukraine that, you know what, you refuse the first agreement, abandon the agreement, and yet Russia has already incurred cost. These are things we need to understand. Because I'm not sure, because every president that comes and supports the United States and the sanction and other things, the other side, they'll come and tell how bad these people are. I don't think Russia is just that bad that they just wage wars against the other without a reason. They will not explain for a reason, and nobody will sit to tell you this. Nobody. Even when they give you sanctions, they will not tell you the reason why they will give. They will give the reason, of course, crime against humanity. And of course, we are well aware that they actually, the superpowers in doing that. This sanction is meant to cut off ties so that Putin cannot travel to any other country with the fear that the 123 member states can arrest him. He will not, any other member state may not be willing to support him because of the fear of the same sanction. And it is just to escalate fear upon the man so he can give up on his fight.
Tomorrow you'll get a recorded version of the same on NBS TV from 4 to 5 p.m. My name is Andrew Irumba Kashaya. We hope that the laws that govern the world can be applied and they should be applied to every other person, big or small, so that all of us can live in a just world. Thank you so much.